Hey there, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Classic Gaming Brothers. I'm Seth.
And I'm Zach.
And we are the Classic Gaming Brothers.
That's right. We are the Classic Gaming Brothers.
That's right. We are the Classic Gaming Brothers.
We are.
I have to do the intro for anyone who, because we don't record this by video, so everyone has to just imagine us in the studio by our sound of our voices. And I have to do the introduction of the podcast with my eyes closed so that I can pretend I'm somewhere else.
Well, I make funny faces at you.
I mean, you don't have to make a face for that.
Wow.
Anyway, what's new?
Not much. You hear about the new analog console?
Yeah, so it's going to be N64?
It's an FPGA N64, compatible with 100% of the library.
So then you could just get the ROMs and play them on the...
Well, you could probably jailbreak it. I mean, ideally, the way you're supposed to do it is get the cartridges.
You would play your cartridges and you'd play them on the...
Yeah, or like a flash
How
card. How
expensive is it going to be, though?
$250.
How expensive is the Analog Pocket?
$220.
Okay.
Their products usually run about that. Like their Duo's $250. I think when I bought the Mega SG, I think it was $240 or $250.
Oh, is Mega SG a analog product?
It is.
Did they replicate an NES?
Yeah, that was the first one they did, which was called I think it was called like the Analog NT. It's long since sold out.
So you have to pay it from some sketchy person on eBay or something?
Yeah, like a third party. I think it was machine cut metal. Like it was just a solid brick of metal because they wanted it to be really fancy.
And then the SNES.
Yeah, that was the Super NT that they released. That's currently out of print. Then the Mega SG. Then they did the Analog Pocket. They have the Analog Duo, which is the TurboGrafx 16 and disk system. And now they have the Analog 3D coming out,
which is going to be the N64.
And for those who don't know, Analog, what they do is they put out FPGA hardware, field programmable gate array hardware, which is essentially a very fancy way to say it emulates the hardware as perfectly as you can without being the hardware. And this allows you to do some pretty cool things, such as upscale your games to 4K resolution without having issues. It also guarantees that the games will be responsive. You won't have to deal with certain lags that you'd find with emulation or certain issues you might find with emulation, such as compatibility issues. FPGA system is able to typically replicate the original console as close as it could. And to do that with the N64 is really neat. The N64 has been historically hard to emulate, so it'd be cool to have a new way to play N64 games. At least I think so. Anyway, that's just a little bit of gaming news. Isn't that fun? I'm sure people would like that gaming news, and it's relevant.
Yeah. We're like breaking coverage. I actually had a thought that we could do an email list and send a newsletter.
We could send a newsletter.
With just like screenshots of the games that we talk about during the episode.
Yeah, that could be fun.
Well, yeah, we could just send people like screenshot of like that KGB game.
Well, hey, listen, if you want a Classic Gaming Brothers newsletter, send us an email.
Not written by AI.
We would write it ourselves hastily the night before we sent it.
Yeah. We would mostly take our notes and then turn them into a newsletter.
Yeah, and it will be obnoxious.
So we're gonna go backwards in time for when it comes to our marketing spiel. So we ran some advertising on Facebook. Now we're gonna do in a newsletter, maybe an e-zine, and then eventually we'll send people printed circulars.
There we go. We could get a billboard.
A billboard. But we can only afford it in like a really cheap, like a really small town.
We'll also not get one of those fancy billboards like that are digital. We'll have to pay for one that's just a poster.
Yeah, just like a real billboard. But regardless, Zach, what have you been recently been playing?
Seth, recently I've been playing Secret Agent Wizard Boy and the International Crime Syndicate because as of the recording of this episode, it is the Steam Next Fest, meaning there's a bunch of demos currently available. Secret Agent Wizard Boy and the International Crime Syndicate is an up-and-coming game developed by John Szymanski, Evan Szymanski, and David Szymanski. The Szymanskis have previously worked on other titles such as My Friendly Neighborhood, which was a first-person shooter game that Seth and I saw at PAX East a few years ago that is kind of like a horror first-person shooter set on Sesame Street.
Oh, yeah.
In the game Secret Agent Wizard Boy and the International Crime Syndicate, you play as Wizard Boy, who attends wizard school, and you receive a letter from MI6 telling you that Professor Grumblemort is actually the leader of Spider, a criminal syndicate. And MI6 instructs you to find out the secrets of the wizard school and catch Professor Grumblemort, and you must go undercover. It's a very goofy game. It's done in the style of the early Harry Potter PC games, specifically Sorcerer's Stone and Chamber of Secrets. It's got the same kind of aesthetic. It's a third-person adventure game. You can cast spells, you can unlock things, and you can do all sorts of stuff. Currently, the demo is a bit demo-y. It's there's not a lot going on. You explore parts of the school. You can't go too far. Certain areas are locked off currently, but you can cast spells on people or learn different things or collect different objects. So unlike in the Harry Potter games, you don't collect Bertie Bott's beans, you collect biscuits, and you can use these biscuits to trade for items that could be used for assorted things like unlocking certain areas. The spells that you learn, you can also cast on your fellow students, which is fun. However, your fellow students are talented and they can fight back, and occasionally they will kill you. It's a goofy game. It also is definitely a bit more chaotic than the Harry Potter games ever were, but you can definitely tell there's a lot of love for those old Harry Potter PC games, especially with the way that the NPCs will talk to you. Sometimes you'll run into an NPC and they'll be like, "Doesn't it feel like we repeat the same thing over and over again?" I'm excited to see the full game come out, and I'll probably keep playing the demo for a bit because I haven't unlocked all the secrets, but yeah, definitely fun, and I'm looking forward to seeing what else is going to come out. Seth, what about you? What have you been recently playing?
I've also been playing a game with the Next Quest, which is going on till October 21st. And that
Next
is...
Fest?
What did I say?
Next Quest. That's the sequel to Chex Quest.
Maybe that'll be the name of our newsletter.
That's good. Next Quest.
Next Quest by Classic Gaming Brothers. Anyway, Keep Driving is a game where it's being developed by YCJY Games, and it's going to be released in the future. In fact, the release date is to be announced. It's a atmospheric management RPG about living on the open road. You play as a guy or gal of a age where you don't have any school to do, but you may not also have any work to do. And you have a new video game, and you want to go to your friend's house, who apparently lives multiple days away from you, and you want to get there before Sunday to show him your game. That's the general gist of the plot. You get into an 80s station wagon. The game, when it launches, you'll be able to choose between a muscle car, a station wagon, or a pickup truck. You get to load it with a bunch of stuff that your mom gives you or that you take from the garage, and you encounter experiences as you navigate the map to get to where your friend lives to play the game, such as going to the gas station and encountering challenges like getting stuck behind a tractor driving really slow. And the game goes into a turn-based fight when you encounter these challenges that has a little deck building mechanic, and it's like a card mechanic. So you have these skills that hang from your rearview mirror, and you can use these skills to fight the stresses of whatever you're encountering. Like if a tractor's driving real slow, they're going to cause your fuel to be used. They're going to make you be tired because you're driving slower, right? And you have to fight the tiredness and the fuel usage by just trying to use your abilities to keep relaxed, which is an ability, and it fights off the challenges against the penalties that are coming at you. In your car, what's cool is you have an inventory management type of game that also is part of it, where you have a trunk, you have the space between your back seat and your front seat where you can store things. So I'm just keeping a banana on the floor behind my seat. That's the storage. And then you have your glove box, and you can put things in your glove box to use them in combat. So if you have gum, it may help with fighting off energy or give you energy and stuff like that. Along the way, you can also pick up people who are hitchhiking. So I was driving along, and there was a hitchhiker, and I decided to pick him up, and he was a out of work businessman. And so then it was just me and this tired old man in a suit driving down the street, and he had the power to allow me to take another turn after my first turn. That was his ability, because then you get their abilities that you could use to fight troubles on the road, and you can pick up at least 4 people, 3 in the back and 1 in the front, and you could just drive. And I could just imagine imagine, because you could see their faces in the rearview mirror and as you select them. And I imagine if you have a full car, it's like watching that 70s show where you're trying to see who's with you. And yeah, it's fun. I enjoyed the music. The vibes were very like 80s type of like chill music. The graphics are fun, very like retro vintage type graphics. I've seen some similar style of games where you're like in a vehicle driving for an extended period of time, but like this is probably one of the first ones that like actually hooked me to like be like, oh, I may actually want to play this game when it comes out. So yeah, so that's Keep Driving. It's gonna be coming out soonish, I guess. But yeah, it's a fun game.
Cool. Now, today's episode, we're going to be kind of following up on a older episode that we did a while back in episode 219. We talked about the Super Mario Brothers Super Show. And during that episode, we alluded to the fact that DIC, D-I-C, also produced other TV shows related to video games. Specifically, they produced some Sonic the Hedgehog TV shows. So today, we're going to be talking about not one, not two, but three Sonic the Hedgehog shows produced by DIC. And those shows in particular are The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, and Sonic Underground. Now, Seth, do you have any memories of these old Sonic cartoons from the 90s?
Yeah, I vaguely remember watching them being on. I just remember him like hanging out in like a hammock or something in the beginning of the episode.
Yeah, at the beginning of Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog.
And then he falls out of it and he goes like running or something like that.
Yeah.
I do remember that. Was there other Sonic cartoons?
There were two. Or three, technically.
I remember the one where he ate the chili dogs and was in the hammock and fell out.
Okay, yeah, so that was The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, which was in syndication, so that's probably why you remember it.
Yeah, so we're only going to be talking about cartoons this time?
Yes.
You think our producer's going to be real bad?
Well, we're not talking about lore, so he can't be that mad.
Oh, that's true.
Well, in terms of my memories, I remember renting copies of the VHS releases for The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog and Sonic the Hedgehog, the Saturday morning cartoon. When a local video store closed, I ended up owning one of the tapes, and I definitely wore it out, rewatching it.
Did you own it by default?
No, I bought it because the video store was selling tapes for like $1 or something.
Oh, all right. Was that when, was that Hollywood?
It was Family Video, I think, over by the
Mexican restaurant?
Yeah.
Yeah, Family Video.
So I think when Family Video shut down, they were selling their leftover movies for like $2 to $3, something ridiculously cheap. And I ended up picking that up. I ended up definitely wearing out the tape of Sonic the Hedgehog that I had, which contained 2 episodes, Super Sonic and Sonic and Sally. In Super Sonic, Sonic loses his ability to run, if I remember correctly, because he meets a wizard, and the wizard decides to take his ability to run away to challenge him. And then in Sonic and Sally, Sally gets kidnapped by Robotnik, and a robot version of her replaces her. Now, to get into the history of these shows, a fun fact that you might hear at a party or read on a social media website or hear when you watch the TV show Scott Pilgrim, which is the show on Netflix, is the fact that Jaleel White played Sonic in 2 different shows that aired at the same time. One was a very serious show, and the other was a slapstick. What you may not be aware of is the fact that Jaleel White played Sonic in 3 different shows, though the last show he was in aired a few years later after the other 2 had ended. And in episode 107, much to our producers' dislike, we talked about the lore of Sonic, specifically covering the stories of the Archie comics, and that Archie comics series was heavily inspired by the shows created by our good friends over at DIC. Now, production began on The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog and another show just called Sonic the Hedgehog around the same time. The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog was developed for syndication with 65 episodes, and the other show, Sonic the Hedgehog, would air for 2 seasons with 26 episodes total, airing every Saturday morning, earning the show the nickname Sonic Sat AM, which is used to distinguish it from the other show. And going forward, we're going to refer to Sonic the Hedgehog, the Saturday morning cartoon, as Sonic Sat AM, so you don't get confused, because we're going to be saying Sonic the Hedgehog a whole lot in the show otherwise.
Yes, it's either The Adventure or Satan?
Sat AM, not Satan.
Oh, okay.
Satam.
Satam. Now, before production began on either show, Sega of America's CEO at the time, Tom Kalinske, went to DiC's CEO, Andy Hayward, with an idea to produce a show for ABC. Tom showed off designs for the character of Sonic, and Hayward and ABC both agreed to make and distribute the show. DiC originally planned to only produce one show, a Saturday morning series that was intended to be fairly lighthearted. Saying that makes me think that there's another show that is a serious Sonic show.
Well, there is.
It's serious?
Sonic the Hedgehog, Sat AM, is very serious.
Like, how is it serious?
Well, the opening sequence shows Sonic running into his city, pointing up in the air as, like, Robotnik's fleet comes in and just decimates the cities. People die in that show.
I have not seen any of that show. All right. Originally, DiC was only planning on doing a fun one, and early ideas would be lighthearted. I guess serious shows can be fun. Early ideas would also be sent over to Archie Comics to begin adapting the Saturday morning cartoon into a comic series so they can make money. DiC realized that they were potentially missing out on opportunity, however, as another show of theirs, The Real Ghostbusters, did fairly well in syndication, and when ABC caught wind of this potential change, they contacted DiC. According to one report, Mark Pedowitz, the senior vice president of affairs, told DiC that if you guys want to do syndication, be our guest, go with God, but you won't be on our network. ABC felt slighted because they expected an exclusive Sonic show, not a syndicated Sonic show. So DiC had to think fast. They wanted to have a syndicated Sonic show because syndication, especially during this time, brought in lots of money. But they also wanted to keep their deal with ABC because exclusive deals also brought in lots of money. They wanted to have their cake and eat it too. So the plan became that DiC would just produce two separate shows, vastly different, so not to cause market confusion. DiC kept their deal with ABC, and they also were able to get into syndication. ABC was not very impressed because they kind of saw that DiC was doing this. They still aired a show that they had exclusive rights with, but only agreed to air one episode as a primetime special in March of 1993. They would go on to pick up the show as a full season, though, after they realized how good it was. Now, because there were two Sonic shows, they need to make sure that they could distinguish them thematically. Both of them are cartoons, though, because it's DiC.
Yes,
right?
And a live-action Sonic show in the 1990s would have been terrifying.
That's what I was hoping. So I wanted a lighthearted cartoon and the exact opposite, a live-action serious show.
Like an HBO drama, but Sonic-themed.
Yes, where he's like in a hospital or something like that. That'd be great. Tails, he's not going to make it. And then they're just like these giant furry creatures walking around through a hospital. That's what I was expecting. But they're just two cartoons because Sonic wasn't a thing that you would make into a cartoon. The CGI wasn't really a thing, and live action would not have worked.
Yeah, right.
Though Reboot was coming out shortly thereafter, or around this time. So maybe
let's be fair, CG still didn't work for Reboot. That's an ugly show.
That show's God's gift to the world. No, because there are the two Sonic shows, they needed to make sure that they could distinguish them thematically. It was decided one show would be more comedic and the other would be more serious. However, they would share one major thing which maintained continuity, and that was the voice of Sonic, who would go on to be played, as Zach mentioned at the top of the show, Jaleel White, who had become a household name by this time thanks to the success of the sitcom Family Matters.
Yeah, because he's Urkel. Beyond Jaleel White, for the syndicated adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, the voice cast would include Long John Baldry as Dr. Robotnik, Gary Chalk as Grounder, Phil Hayes as Scratch, Christopher Stephen Welch as Tails, and Ian James Corlett as Coconuts. For Sonic Sat AM, Jim Cummings would play Dr. Robotnik, Rob Paulson played Antoine Depardieu, Bradley Pierce played Tails, Kath Soucie played Princess Sally, Christine Cavanaugh played Bunny Rabbit, Charlie Adler played Snively, and Frank Welker provided the voice of Robotnik's robot chicken Cluck. the various SWAT bots, and Sonic's dog, Mutsky. The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog would have its storyboards produced by the Spanish animation studio Milimetros Dibujos Animados, and would have 4 different animation studios work on it: Rainbow Animation Group, Seiran Production, Hong Ying Animation, and Tokyo Movie Shinsha. Seiran Production would also work on Sonic Sat AM. The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog would air from September 6th to December 3rd of 1993 with a total of 65 episodes. Sonic Sat AM aired from September 18th, 1993 until December 11th, 1993 with 13 episodes in its first season, and it would get renewed for a second season, which aired September 10th of 1994 until December 3rd of 1994 and featured 13 episodes as well. So there are a total of 26 episodes. Sonic Sat AM would air episodic in its first season. So each episode kind of stands alone. The episodes were actually aired out of order, so thankfully they didn't have a reoccurring theme. Otherwise, you probably would have been confused. The second season, though, does have a story arc. The second season also did have some shifts in terms of writing. ABC felt that the first season was a bit too dark, so they did ask that Deke make the show slightly more lighthearted, and they obliged. So the second season does have a few more comedic elements to it. After the show's run, it would actually get picked up for syndication, airing in USA Network's Extreme Action Team block with shows like Street Fighter, Savage Dragon, Exo Squad, Street Sharks, and even the Super Mario Bros. Super Show and related Mario programs. So thanks to USA Network, Sonic and Mario got to share a syndicated block. And interestingly enough, the shows would cross over slightly. You see, in 1996, there was a special released called Sonic Christmas Blast. The main story is set in the Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog universe. However, Princess Sally, Robotropolis, and the SWAT bots from Sat AM are referenced. Sonic Christmas Blast was also, as a fun fact, originally advertised as a tie-in with the canceled Sonic Extreme and had the original name of An Extremely Sonic Christmas, but it would have its name changed to tie into Sonic 3D Blast.
After the release of Sonic Christmas Blast, a new show began development. In 1997, around the time that the Dreamcast and Sonic Adventure were being worked on, Deke began production of a new series featuring Sonic, and to generate plots for the show, Deke reportedly would use cattle calls to bring in writers. Reportedly, about 20 unaffiliated writers would be brought to the studio, learn about the characters, which arguably wouldn't take that long, brainstorm ideas, and then only one would be hired.
Yeah, so they did all this work, and then they'd be like, all right, everyone leave, and you stay and work on the ideas we just brainstormed.
That's like an 8-hour day right there to learn about Sonic and then brainstorm ideas. Now, at some point in time, it was decided that the show would be a musical, and music would be written by Mike Perillo, and though he would struggle as storyboards were not actually available for him to write or score a musical to what was supposed to be a musical. I'm not one to know things about musicals or productions or anything, but I feel like if you were a composer and you wanted to compose a score to a thing, you might want to be able to see the thing.
Yeah.
I wonder if he just had the Sonic game on the Sega Genesis just playing.
Man, the music sounds nothing like the game, so probably not.
So returning to the cast was Julia White as Sonic, and as Sonic's sister Sonia, and Sonic's brother Manic. To distinguish the voices, the pitch on the 3 siblings is slightly different.
Bartleby can wait, but Mother can't. What's keeping you, Slow-Mo?
We're waiting.
Nice try, kids. But that's my line.
Jaleel would not sing, with Sam Vincent, Steve Valance, and Tylee Ross singing for Sonic, Sonia, and Manic, respectively. So they needed 3 people to sing, but only Jaleel White to speak.
And let me tell you, I completely forgot the Jaleel White voices, all 3, because I remember watching Sonic Underground once or twice. I think it aired. There was this day, so we didn't have expanded cable when Seth and I were growing up, but sometimes they would do this thing where a certain channel would get the content of some expanded cable programming. So I think it was one channel became Toon Disney for the day. And basically the idea was that you watch a few episodes of the programming on Toon Disney, and then your family can decide whether or not they actually want to purchase that channel. And that happened one week. And Sonic Underground was one of the programs that was on Toon Disney. So I did watch a few episodes of it while it was airing. At the time, I couldn't tell the difference, but I was rewatching an episode recently and I was like, wow, Sonya Anya sounds so much like Jaleel White, just slightly up-pitched. And then I was like, oh wait, Jaleel White is the only person credited for those roles. It's like, that makes sense.
Now, another returning voice was Gary Chalk, who played Grounder in The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, though this time he was taking on the role of Dr. Robotnik, so Grounder became the master. It's like if Anthony Daniels came back and played Hayden Christensen.
just the actor, not the character.
Knuckles would also be introduced as a reoccurring character, voiced by Brian Drummond. Sonic Underground premiered in France on January 6, 1999. It was later released in England on May 2nd, 1999, and began a North America broadcast in syndication on August 30th, 1999. The series would run on the Sci-Fi Channel, though episodes would get skipped due to other shows sometimes taking priority. So only 32 of the 40 episodes would actually go on to air on Sci-Fi in the North American market. Which that was always wild with television, that literally you can watch something in chronological order or air order, which is just kind of funny.
Well, with the Sci-Fi Channel, I'm pretty sure the show that took priority was the Double Dragon cartoon.
That's good. Now, music at all three shows is pretty good. The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog makes use of more upbeat, almost Looney Tune-esque music with fast-paced opening that borrows the motif of the Sonic the Hedgehog game. Satam, or Saturday Morning's theme, is more rock and roll inspired, called The Fastest Thing Alive, and was composed by the Noisy Neighbors and Michael Tavera.
Blue streak speeds by, Sonic the Hedgehog, too fast for the naked eye. Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic, he can really move. Sonic, he's got an attitude. Sonic, he's the fastest thing alive.
And as mentioned earlier, Sonic Underground featured music by Mike Piccirilli. Then the theme is just called Sonic Underground and is pretty catchy.
Triplets born, the throne awaits. A seer warns of a deadly fate. Give up your children, separate. Bide your time, lie in wait. Sonic Underground, Sonic Underground. They made a vow their mother will be found.
Now, to get into the plot, all three of the shows have different plots, and none of them are really close to the video games at all. To be fair, back in the 1990s, there wasn't much to base a Sonic show on in terms of storyline. The plot of early Sonic games is Sonic goes fast, Robotnik is mean. The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog probably has the loosest of the plots. The show features Sonic and Tails going around the colorful world of Mobius. And by colorful, I mean sometimes the backgrounds are just shapes. Not really like distinct shapes, just like squares and circles and stuff. Occasionally, they would help citizens of the planet with various problems that they have. Usually, these problems were caused by Dr. Ivo Robotnik, the megalomaniacal mad scientist who works to use his robots to take over the planet. Robotnik lives on a fortress on top of a mountain where he creates various robots that he calls badniks. Two of these badniks that Robotnik created are Scratch and Grounder, and they serve as Robotnik's main stooges, who are often thwarted by Sonic and Tails and later trashed by Robotnik in punishment. They're kind of like if Wile E. Coyote was two different people and if Roadrunner was two different people.
I might as well face it. With you two idiots working for me, it may take me years to catch Sonic.
He's more of an idiot than me.
No, he is. I'll be an old man.
So will Sonic.
Yeah, he'll be easier to catch then.
Grounder is a tread-wheeled robot with drill bits for hands and his nose. He is somewhat slow-witted, and Scratch is a robotic chicken that is hot-headed and egotistical. They also are occasionally aided or hampered by Coconuts, a monkey badnik who got demoted by Robotnik after failing to stop Sonic. Scratch, Grounder, and Coconuts are actually all based on enemies from Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Grounder is directly based on an enemy from the Aquatic Ruin Zone. Scratch is based on the chicken that is found in Wing Fortress Zone, a chicken Plankton robot, and Coconuts is based on the enemy found in Emerald Hill Zone, the monkey that climbs in the tree and throws coconuts at you. At the end of the episodes of The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, there would be a quick segment called Sonic Says. During this segment, sometimes Tails would get into trouble, so Sonic would have to explain a moral. These would be things like, don't climb inside washing machines.
Sonic, help! I'm getting dizzy!
Now, does that look like fun to you? If so, your brains are scrambled. Believe it or not, every year some ignorant kid takes a ride in a clothes dryer just like this one and ends up getting hurt. It gets pretty hot in there, and those dryer fins can break your bones when they get going. If you think it's smart to climb in a dryer, you're really all wet.
Or don't talk to strangers.
There's nothing more cool than being hugged by someone you like. But if someone tries to touch you in a place or in a way that makes you feel uncomfortable, that's no good. It's your body. No one has the right to touch you if you don't want them to. So what do? First, you say no. Then, you get out of there. Most important, you gotta tell someone you trust. Like your parents, your teacher, a police officer.
There's one where Tails, violates air traffic control laws, which I don't know if those come up very frequently for children, but, good moral to learn is not to violate air traffic control laws.
I'm scared, Sonic. I know I should have obeyed that no flying sign. What's the judge gonna do to me?
I don't know, but I'm sure it'll be fair. That's what judges are for.
No flying for a whole month.
Look at the bright side, Tails. It could have been worse. The laws are there for a reason. You may not agree with them, but you gotta obey them. You don't ever want to end up in court.
Sonic Sat AM has a bit more of a complex storyline, but one familiar to those who remember our Sonic lore episodes. So there's the angry react from producer Doug. The story is set on the planet Mobius, different from the one shown in The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog. Mobius has been conquered by the tyrannical Dr. Julian Robotnik, who used a robot army to turn the once peaceful planet into a dystopia. He operates out of Robotropolis, formerly called Mobotropolis, which was home to Sonic's people. Robotnik had previously been employed by King Acorn, who was voiced by Tim Curry, and he was employed as the warlord of the Royal Army. After the end of a prolonged conflict, Julian refused to dismantle his SWAT bots and instead staged a coup against the kingdom, throwing the king into a parallel universe called the Void and trapping him there. With his nephew Snively, Robotnik rules the planet with an iron fist.
You lied to me, Snively.
Lied, sir?
You said that the Shriekbot could outrun the Hedgehog!
It can, sir. We just have to install more thrust boosters.
Snively, what color is my heart?
I don't see out, sir.
Exactly.
Robotnik does have to contend with the fact that he is frequently dealing with Sonic and his band of freedom fighters, which consists of Tails, Princess Sally Acorn, the daughter of King Acorn, Rotor the Walrus, Bunny Rabbit, and Antoine Depardieu. And they do their best to stop Robotnik, but they're children, so they really can't do much, though sometimes they destroy Robotnik's supply lines or blow up buildings. Lastly, Sonic Underground's plot. Its entire plot is actually explained in the theme song, but to just sum it up, Sonic is the son of Queen Alina of Mobius. Sonic and his siblings, Sonia and Manic, are separated from their mother when Dr. Robotnik takes over the planet. Robotnik is seeking the three siblings, and the three siblings are trying to find their mother. They also play music, and they can use their instruments as weapons. Sonic's guitar, I think, turns into a gun, which is cool, but a little weird. Sonic very rarely uses guns. Actually, I don't think he ever uses guns, but yeah, he uses guns in this.
Do they turn into guns like the guitar always is a guitar and shoots lasers, or do they turn into guns like they transform and turn into guns?
He just always is able to shoot lasers.
Oh, so it's not a gun, it's a guitar that shoots lasers.
All right, fair enough.
So, Sonic Saturday AM would go on to rank number 9 for all Saturday morning cartoons with an estimated 4.8 million viewers during its first season. The show has been remembered fondly by fans, but overall has received some mixed contemporary reviews. The review aggregator Rotten Tomatoes has the show ranked at 40%, though only based on 5 reviews, and 3 of them, Doug, our producer. The AV Club did praise the show and lauded the show's ability to tackle topics like death, romance, and loss, which, with a star that is a blue hedgehog, is something that people would not necessarily expect. The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, meanwhile, was amazing, though received more critical reception. One review from Common Sense Media gave the show a 3 out of 5 and called it frantic. Another review from US Gamer said that it attempted to emulate shows like Ren and Stimpy, but failed due to the lack of quality control that typically plagued 65-episode syndicated series. You know what? I say to that, it was its own special joy. Sonic Underground would also receive mixed reviews, primarily being due to nothing like the games and having a confusing storyline. The music, however, has been called catchy. A review from Wired said that the songs are actually kind of catchy in a Saturday morning cartoon kind of way, but the band thing seems a bit out of place, especially when the instruments turn into weapons.
In terms of the legacy, all 3 shows have seen renewed life in various home video releases, such as VHS tapes or DVD sets. They are also, as of the recording of this episode, I believe can be streamed on Paramount+. The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog did make it into the world of video games. The aesthetic and the enemies that are in Dr. Robotnik's Mean Beam Machine are all taken from the series, and the design of Robotnik in that game is actually directly taken from The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog. Sonic SatAM also made it into a game with the release of Sonic Spinball. The characters of Bunny, Sally, and Rotor all appear in a minigame sequence, and Robotnik's robot pet Cluck will appear every now and then as an enemy. Another game was designed for the Sega Genesis that was going to have more direct references to Sonic SatAM and actually feature stealth segments, but it never made it past the proof of concept stage. Sonic Underground received a tie-in comic as part of a storyline in the Archie comics. In the storyline, Sonic visits a bunch of other universes, including Greendale, which is home to Sabrina the Teenage Witch. So Sonic meets Sabrina. The names Sonia and Manic were also used for Sonic's children in the Mobius 25 Years Later storyline in the Sonic comics. There have also been attempts to revive Sonic SatAM, either as a film or a new season. The late Ben Hurst, a writer and story editor for the show, had attempted to negotiate with Sega to get a film version of the 3rd season off the ground, but these plans ultimately fell through due to a variety of reasons, and there are reasons that range from Sega not necessarily being fully committed to potentially being related to another Sonic writer at the time. Now, this Sonic writer in particular argues that the situation proceeded differently than how Ben Hurst originally described. Unfortunately, Ben Hurst did in fact pass away, so Ben Hurst isn't really there to defend his side of the story. So we have kind of a he said situation where one person said that the other person stepped into places that they shouldn't have and thus caused the plan to fall apart. Who knows if that's really the case? Again, it's kind of a messy situation. Now, a group of fans called Team Season, with season stylized as SEA3ON, so C3on? I don't know. Anyway, Team Season 3 have been involved in reviving the show. They actually had a teaser for a project posted in 2022 with a cover of Fastest Thing Alive by Johnny Gioeli of Crush 40, the band that did the music for Sonic Adventure and Sonic Adventure 2. So we'll see if something comes off the ground with that. It would obviously be a fan production. It wouldn't be necessarily the official Sonic Season 3 that everyone wants, but who knows? Maybe it'll be just as good, if not better. Also, just as a fun legacy thing, Gary Chalk, who voiced Grounder and Dr. Robotnik in Sonic Underground, would actually show up in the Sonic movie. He's a Joint Chiefs of Staff member in the first movie when one of the military people are talking about Sonic potentially being a threat and suggesting they bring in Dr. Robotnik. Now, that will do it for our Sonic TV show episode, our Tale of Three Sonics, as I called it, where we broke down 3 different Sonic cartoons, all starring Jaleel White and all being produced by Deke. And these are shows that, sure, you can watch them. If you like older Saturday morning cartoons from that era of the 90s, definitely check them out. Just keep in mind that Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog is the kind of funny one, and Sonic the Hedgehog, or SatAM, is the a little more serious one, and Sonic Underground is the kind of weird one. Sonic Underground has an episode. I need to tell you about one episode of Sonic Underground. There's an episode of Sonic Underground where Robotnik creates a robotic baby to spy on the Sonic children. So he leaves it in a dumpster, and Manic Sonic finds it and thinks it's a real baby, so he begins taking care of it. And at one point, it's discovered that the baby is a spy. Like, Sonic learns that it's a spy robot, but Manic doesn't believe him. And they're going on an adventure, and they bring the baby, and Manic drops the baby, and it explodes in a fireball. It's just a very weird sequence.
You know what would be even funnier is if it was a live action sequence.
But that will do it for our Tale of Three Sonics. Again, great shows that you can watch on your free time if you want. And they're video game related, hence why we talked about them. To get into our retro rewind, Seth, do you want to go first?
Sure. So Zach had me play Mega Man 5, or Mega Man V, for the Game Boy, which was developed by Capcom in 1994. It is the 5th Mega Man game for the Game Boy, and it's like a lot of the other Mega Man games preceding it and succeeding it, where it's an action platformer. You play as Mega Man, and you go through the various stages fighting actually unique bosses, which is unique for Mega Man on the Game Boy, as all the previous Mega Man games before Mega Man 5 had the same bosses from the NES games. Mega Man 5 does not have recycled NES bosses, but in fact has their own unique bosses, and they have fun names, and they are Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, which would be planets that were previously occupied in our solar system, but one of them got kicked out. Rip Pluto. And it's fun. It's a Mega Man game. You play as Mega Man, you run and jump and shoot bad guys and platform. It's an earlier Mega Man game and a Game Boy Mega Man game. So, like, if you're used to a lot of fun Mega Man moves, you're probably going to be missing out on those. But if you want to just play a simpler Mega Man game, Mega Man 5 is great. If you, for instance, have a Game Boy and your parents are driving somewhere and all you have is your Game Boy to keep you in company, Mega Man 5 is an acceptable game to bring on that journey. If you have access to the entire internet and any Mega Man game, it's all right. I wouldn't necessarily put it on, like, your top playthrough for Mega Mans, but it's definitely not the worst. It's a mediocre Mega Man game. And I think it holds up in that vein. It holds up as much as any mediocre Mega Man game holds up. Next week, Zach, you could play Extreme Paint Brawl for the MS-DOS.
Thanks, I'm excited to play that game. I'm sure it's not terrible. Now, Seth had me play Descent, released in 1995 by Parallax Software. Descent is a first-person shooter where you play as a material defender for a company called PTMC, a company that has been impacted by a mysterious alien computer virus. You fly around in a little ship and you shoot robots. It's fun. However, the original DOS version is a bit motion sickness inducing, largely just due to the fact that it's a combination of, like, full 3D worlds and being able to, like, move 360, and that can just be a little disorienting. I would be interested to try a more modern version, or modernized version rather, to hopefully see if they can fix these issues. I do believe that there's a version on Steam. I don't know if it's the DOS version or an updated version, but I'd be interested to check out an updated version to see if they could design it in a way that is a little less motion sick inducing. It is, though, a fun game. I had a good time playing it while I wasn't getting sick, and overall, I did enjoy it, and I think it holds up if you like old shooters. Next week, Seth, you can play Empire War Game of the Century for MS-DOS.
Fun. That sounds exciting.
Now, thank you everyone for joining us today. If anyone remembers the Sonic the Hedgehog cartoons, be sure to let us know. You can email us at classicgamingbrothers@gmail.com. Also, be sure to let us know if you're interested in a newsletter. And also, be sure to check us out on all the various podcasting applications we're on, be it iHeartRadio, Podbean, or iTunes. We're available on Facebook, Classic Gaming Brothers, Instagram, Classic Gaming Brothers, X, CG Brothers Pod, Blue Sky, CG Brothers Pod. We're also available on Threads and YouTube as Classic Gaming Brothers. With that, I don't think I'm forgetting anything. Seth, am I forgetting anything?
Don't play games like my brother.
And don't play games like my brother.
I've been Seth.
And I've been Zach.
And we've been the Classic Gaming Brothers.
That's right.